It is Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. It is the Royal Rumble preview show, and I do that every year with Joe Murray. Joe Murray, of course, hosts our nighttime show and is in various other spots on the station. Joe Murray, how are you today?
Good, and you?
Peachy, living the dream. Thank you, Tony. Of course, that's an inside Maz joke. Like, good you. So there's a lot to talk about. There's the Royal Rumble. Uh, the Rock is now at the head of the table as a board of director. Uh, But I think probably the big story from yesterday, and we also have Seth Rollins to talk about. We have Cody Rhodes and CM Punk to talk about before we get to all the Rumble preview. But where I want to start is the WWE announced that Raw is going to Netflix. It's a 5, 10, 15, 20-year deal. Uh, right now, it looks like the parameters are it's about a 10-year deal worth about $5 billion. And as of right now, it's going to be Monday Night Raw on Netflix. But as Nick Khan said on the Pat McAfee show, there's a lot of time between now and January of 2025. And so when I first heard the news, Joe Murray, I was like, oh, good. I have Netflix. I'm good. I can watch it live. Should be fine. No problem. Um, what was your initial reaction to WWE Raw going to Netflix?
Well, $5 billion, jump get you out of your seat. That's where I started. But sports, we talk about it on Peacock, right? We watch the NFL and things of that degree. This will now be the first live streaming sports event on Netflix. Like that's a big deal. Not to mention the subscriptions. Like I think people will subscribe to Netflix as an alternative to some of the others. So right off the bat, I think they'll make money because of subscriptions. So smart deal, but it's exclusivity, right? There's no one else that's there that's doing live or anything like that. And here's the other thing. Now there's so many other layers of what WWE can do. They have their primetime shows. I'm sure you'll have a SmackDown update in a minute here, but overall, Netflix is now the home of WWE. Will have all their records and videos, etc. But like this is good because A, you'll subscribe, but B, there's no other competitor as of now when it comes to live streaming. So I think it's going to put more eyes on the WWE because think of the people who get Netflix. It's not just me and you, Jimmy. It's people all over. So I think it's a win-win for both sides. But being exclusive, I think, is really important.
So there are so many layers to this show. The main one is that there are as many people, if not more, domestically in the lower 48s who have access to the USA network that have paid subscriptions to Netflix. So the potential audience is actually bigger by WWE growing to Netflix, at least in the lower 48. Globally and internationally, they get the entire catalog. They get the entire WWE network on Netflix. Now, whether that changes going forward, because remember, USA Network has a deal for SmackDown and they own Peacock Network. So WWE has their toe in both waters. They have Raws on Netflix and your premium live events and your archival footage for the lower 48 is on a different server, on a different streaming service. So they're good there. And then NXT goes to CW Network, which is partially owned by Time Warner Media, which doesn't get talked about enough. So there's that element to it. Do I think that the entire WWE network is going to end up on Netflix in 2 years when the Peacock deal expires? It might, but you have to remember that WWE being a global brand, they want they have 10 toes. They want all those toes in different forms of water. And just with that, that's why they're a global brand. If you also look at AEW and what they're doing right now, they're just on TNT and TBS and those outlets. That's their narrowcast. WWE is broadcast with the net. And that's something that WWE I think wants, is to be in all these different places and all these different platforms. So do PLEs go to Netflix? They might. I think it'll be determined by the highest bidder. Why this deal happened It happened because WWE once again is at the forefront. They were the first real sports entity to put forth their own network, right? And everybody kind of has kind of copied from there. From the Netflix point of view, it's layered in that now you can see Austin Theory in the Marine 10 or 11 or whatever they're up to. Like this gives WWE more movie opportunities, which
Great
is what they
point.
are anyway. They're a sports entertainment company, right? They do sports, but they're also entertainers at the same time, and they love when people go off and branch into movies, except they want the rights to the movies and the copyright fees and all that stuff. The other thing is this Netflix's first step into getting the NBA rights? Because I think that's on the table too. Because the NBA doesn't have a deal yet for their rights going forward, and Amazon does Thursday Night Football. ESPN Plus is always a player in something. Does Netflix now use the WWE as a template to be like, oh, we can actually live stream sports now? And then they dive feet first, they dive head first, they dive full body plunge, cold plunge into the NBA. And now Netflix not only has WWE, but it also has the NBA. I think there's just so many layers to this.
That's great. I never thought about the movie side because that's what they do, right? And
We make
so
movies, pal.
there you go. That's a great layer to it that that I, now maybe The Rock will be involved, and if you can explain maybe what, because you mentioned head of the table when you started this podcast.
Oh
We
yeah,
heard
so
that.
so the Rock's promo might have been like, no, you all think that I'm fighting Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, but I'm not. I'm actually going to be on the board of directors, which actually posed an interesting question. And I texted somebody who would know because Jonathan Kraft is on the board of directors, right? For
I've
TKO, right?
heard that, yeah.
So,
Is that why he wasn't at the Gerard Mayo press conference?
oh, it has to be. It's obviously the
Yeah,
reason. But
yeah.
it's funny too because Tony Khan told me this both on and off the record that John Kraft is like a big like they're good friends, and so it's wild to me that Jonathan Kraft would be on the board of directors for a competing company, right? Like MJF just did an event for the Kraft family recently,
True.
but yet Jonathan is on the board of directors for WWE. But that's a side topic, I think, probably. So my question was, if The Rock is on the board of directors, does this mean that he can tell Roman Reigns or any other WWE talent what the finish to a match was? Right? Because he's on the board of directors. Like Vince McMahon is not on the board of directors. And Vince doesn't have creative power anymore. But I don't know the answer to that question, right? The Rock, The Rock gets his ownership of the Rock trademark. He's a new contractor. He has a new contractor merchandising agreement. So you'll see more Rock merchandise. Like they just sent out the 40-year anniversary of Hulkamania merchandise email today. And Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, gets $30 million in TKO stock. And they all vest within the next 2 years. Right? So that's a sneaky little like tax manipulation thing, but that's for the business podcast, right? But Dwayne Johnson only received $500,000 for his WWE appearances, which feels low, right? Like you
Yeah.
get The Rock on for 2 shows, like you figure that's $1 million a pop, but it's less than $500,000. But the idea is that everybody thinks that The Rock is going to do WrestleMania against Roman, right? For a while, we thought, oh, it's a elimination chamber, and this will kind of go into our Royal Rumble commentary a little bit later. But like, what if The Rock's in the board of directors, and what if The Rock is in the main event in Philadelphia? And Roman and The Rock go to the ring with a different finish. And The Rock's in there. You're like, you know what? I want to win tonight. I'm going to go over. Roman, you have to lay down. What happens? The Rock essentially is signing paychecks, right? The Rock could call an audible, and it's like, what does Roman do?
Conflict of interest.
Right? So, and Joe, we were in New Orleans for WrestleMania 34. And at the after party, we've talked about this before, so I'm not telling tales out of school. At the after party, there was scuttlebutt that Roman Reigns was supposed to win. And then when they got to the ring, they changed the finish because the crowd wasn't reacting. And Brock ended up winning over Roman. And then Brock threw the belt at Vince and was like, "Here's your effing belt, whatever."
Yeah.
And that was
Oh,
the talk at the WrestleMania party after, was that Vince McMahon changed the finish to his main event during the match.
scuttlebutt. We all love that. You know what though? Whatever the outcome is, people want to see The Rock in the ring. So like, and people have their mixed feelings on Roman Reigns, but I think maybe that would love the character more if it was what you're saying. I think you would feel for. I think you would feel for him. And there's so many stories going on, Jimmy, in wrestling, like wrestling storytelling. There's phenomenal storytelling going on right now, but the fact that they throw this in the week of the Royal Rumble, like they're not on. You want to talk about full throttle? WWE's road to WrestleMania as the highway to like the stairway to heaven with flames. Like it is wow. Like the storylines they are building right now are endless. And I do want to give props to Tony Khan, but I heard it was Ari that really is the guy that was behind a lot of this and getting things together. So there are people that were outside of WWE who created this, who wanted people that were a part of WWE to be, to be a part of it and spearhead it. And the Rock's here. We know what Triple H's involvement is, but like now it's like the guys are getting paid to do what they love instead of like being the job and what's next. It's now like set up for them where they can still be the stars and still have a little bit of control, as you mentioned.
Well, and so I think the biggest hire in WWE history is Nick Khan. Like, that guy just goes out there and he gets deals done. He has a goal in mind and he executes it. It's like they had a value for what they wanted for their rights to different things. He just goes out there and he gets it done. And it's insane to me. Like, he is I'll be interested to see how history looks upon Nick Khan, because in the era that we grew up, Joe, because I'm 42, right? So I grew up Hulkamania, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, Mega Powers era. That was my era, right? So Hulk Hogan is important hire number one by Vince McMahon Jr. Hire number two that's most important is Pat Patterson. And not because he was the first ever intercontinental champion, because he was the North American champion that he won from Ted DiBiase, not the tournament in Rio de Janeiro. But between Pat Patterson and Bruce Pritchard, who might be the third most important hire in WWE history, those two put together the creative that you saw on TV. So you have Vince, who has the money, you have Hogan, who's the star, and then you have the creative minds. Nick Khan is probably like number 5 on that list. And maybe he moves higher than Bruce and Pat based on the business deals that he's cutting. And so that's why he's such an important hire, because he's bringing in all this revenue so that, I don't know, the wrestlers get paid, the superstars get paid, and the product is being seen by more people than ever. There is one thing that I want to mention about this Netflix thing that I meant to kind of throw in there, is that there are fans online who are upset that, oh, I have to buy a subscription fee, right? And there are people who are obsessed with the wrestling ratings, right? So now I don't have to ever see, starting next year, I don't ever have to see a raw ratings analysis ever again, because all
Wow.
the digital stuff is, hidden. If they don't want to release it, they don't have to. But ratings in TV, and specifically for sports companies, are so antiquated because it's about impressions. Like, the WWE might spout out, like Nick Khan said on the Pat McAfee conversation, like, "Oh, Raw did, almost a 2 rating against this, and this." In that context, that's fine. But the number that they always spout out is impressions. So here's the biggest difference between WWE and AEW. The CM Punk return ended up with, like, I don't know, 5 million views on their YouTube page. And I don't know how many other impressions. The WWE impressions on the CM Punk return were like 75 million. That is the biggest difference between, and this other layer to it is, I had people who with Survivor Series, who are only WWE casual, very casual WWF fans, who were like, "Oh my God, CM Punk's back to wrestling," and I kind of want to be like, "Yeah, he came back 2 years ago to AEW," but no, like they only follow the WWF. Jim Ross, right? Jim Ross will go through an airport and somebody will be like, "Oh, hey, I missed you on TV," and Jim Ross will be like, "I'm on AEW," or when he was on AEW, and he's like, "Oh, I've never heard of it." So there's that layer to it, but it's such like so it's the Belichick chess versus checkers thing. It's WWE is competing with everything out there. And AEW is just competing with New Japan and Impact, and they want to compete with WWE, and they can beat them on certain metrics, but WWE is a global brand, and it's an entertainment brand. It's not just a wrestler company, and that's the difference. And the great thing is that everybody's making money now, or presumably everybody's making money.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
I
kind of the biggest difference there.
so that's what I was gonna nail on it. You nailed it, Jimmy. You beat me to it. But global, they're going global. Ari Emanuel is going global. He doesn't look at WWE as we do this in the United States. Nope, global. And I believe Netflix you can get global. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, it's available in like 190 countries or something like that. And it's the only platform. The US Netflix is the only Netflix that will not have premium live events, the archive footage immediately, all that stuff because it's locked into Peacock.
Yeah. So I do think you mentioned Tony Khan being the best hire. Ari Emanuel
Nikon.
is yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, Nick Khan. Woo. Oh, huh? Hey, that's a weird, another weird dynamic for another day. But just the whole Ari Emanuel, though, I think deserves props. Endeavor, what they're doing, I think he sees money. I think they listen to smart people. I think The Rock is a smart person. I mentioned Triple H is a smart person. And I think they're going global to the point where maybe wrestling will only need one place. And you talked about a blueprint of something and watching it grow. Maybe being on Netflix and being on a global stream might maybe have other entities of WWE on a global scale in wrestling, where that might be where AEW, which is a discussion point here, you mentioned ratings and things to that degree. They just will never, you won't be able to compete on a global level against them.
Not yet, but if AEW hangs around for another 20 years, right? They could end up like Impact. They could end up like Impact TNA.
Oh, yeah. We all
Or
need competition, you
they could
know?
grow more,
Mm.
right? Like, the National Wrestling Alliance and Jim Crockett Promotions and WCW, like it took them a while, but that's a generational company, right? So, I'm a third generation wrestling fan, right? And but it was I grew up on WWE. That's the first company that I found. And that to me is like there won't be another company like WWE, but AEW will give it a run for its money. Unless they've already blown that moment, which I don't think that they have, but it's generational. It's what was your first wrestling show was what? It was a WWE show, right?
It was definitely a WWE
Yeah.
show on like maybe a Saturday night or
Yeah.
Saturday morning, you know?
And that's just kind of what it is. Let's dive into that's kind of the business side of wrestling. Let's dive into a few things. So Seth Rollins isn't giving up the Raw World title. He did a promo and basically said, like, look, I'm hurt. My timeline for rehab is 3 months. I'll see you at WrestleMania. And that's the paraphrase. And then Gunther comes out and is like, yeah, you're a good champion, blah, blah, blah. And we all expect a beat down or a cash in or Rollins to hand over the title. He does none. So he's essentially coasting to WrestleMania, which has a bunch of storyline flaws to it. Like Damian Priest should have been out there like very quickly and cashed in or done something. But they didn't. They're choosing to wait it out. And Triple H is on the record with his press conferences saying, look, I'm patient with things. And here's the interesting thing, though, Joe. I didn't see anybody online complaining that Seth Rollins isn't going to make a title defense until April 6th or 7th. right? As opposed to Roman Reigns, who hasn't defended his title since November 4th, I think it is. And it's like every day, it's like, oh, Roman's got to defend the title. Roman's got no. It's like either Roman has to defend the title every 30 days and Seth has to defend it every 30 days, or you can't complain about it. This was my whole comparison with Okada. Like there was a time where Brock Lesnar was wrestling, 5 times a year as the champion, as a champion. And it's like, yeah, Okada had like a 700-day run and he only defended the belt like 10 times. So like what are we doing here? Do we care that the title is defended in 30 days because that's what we grew up with? Or do we just want the big matches and the big moments? And that's what WWE wants. They want the big matches, they want the big moments. What I did find interesting was on Monday, I talked to somebody in the company who was like, yeah, that was a teaser because Gunther was going to win the Royal Rumble at one point. And it was going to be Seth Rollins versus Gunther for the night one main event of WrestleMania, which I find interesting. Because Gunther's due to get knocked off by somebody here. And if I had to put my money on it, I'd say it's Braun Breaker as a call up and he gets the Intercontinental title. And that's how you impact Braun Breaker. But everything kind of changed with CM Punk coming back. So this is a long way of me getting to this question, Joe. What's your opinion of Seth Rollins being hurt and just getting a clean path to WrestleMania without having to do any title defenses, we assume?
Well, I think there maybe should be, with the new Netflix deal in 2025, a champion has to defend the championship at least once. So I like that. I don't know if they can incorporate that, but that could be the Jay Stool rule. You know what I mean? We could have that.
That's the old Jack Tunney rule. Once every 30 days.
Okay, all right, the Tunney rule. So you know what's funny? You are right. I didn't care at all. I'm like, all right, how's this one gonna work out? I think he's a fighting champion. I think Gunther gave him that, as you mentioned. The promo work and the storytelling was great, as we mentioned, but just the thought of it for me, there's many layers to it that I think they swerved. I don't think we're gonna see Rollins until Mania. I don't think we're gonna, and I think he's gonna have the championship. But they do need to let the Rumble play out and see what happens there. But I think that maybe there was a match that they had in mind that got changed. And whether it involved CM Punk, whether it involved Brock Lesnar, I don't know. Maybe you can do some research on that one. But that's at least what I've heard, is that there may have been some behind the scenes things. And they didn't want to pull the belt off of Rollins. And personally, to answer the real question, I don't.
Wait a minute. Stop. You're speculating here that there was something behind the scenes that feels informed to me, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel like somebody wasn't going along with a perceived WrestleMania matchup.
Okay, can I interpret this? And then
a rumored one.
So can I interpret this as Seth Rollins doesn't want to fight CM Punk at WrestleMania?
Yes. Yep. And I don't know how informed I am, besides people that I respect who've, at least speculated it. That has to be the reason. How many guys are hurt and don't drop the title immediately? It never happens. Hardly, right? You're a historian of the sport. It doesn't happen. You're hurt, you drop the title, that's it.
Yeah.
You walk away. You're out of the picture. Here, they're going to let it roll a little bit. And he's done this before around WrestleMania time. But yes, I'm speculating that something behind the scenes may have happened with CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and now they're trying to change it, and they have time to wait it out. And I think that's one of the big things that we've heard this week, is there's a lot of time to get there. And there is a lot of time in wrestling, as we know, with these long reigns that you mentioned.
So I had heard, and I think I said as much in real time on the podcast, that Rollins and Punk almost got into a fist fight backstage at Madison Square Garden. Did you hear that story?
I laughed. I heard it, but I didn't care. That's what I mean. The stories are great because at this point you have to laugh about it, because this is what it is. CM Punk versus everybody. How many face-to-face matchups has CM Punk had with a WWE superstar in the last month? You know,
he's fought Dominic Mysterio twice.
Yeah, but face-to-face, he's had Drew, Seth, and Cody. I mean, he's had more not touching of the noses than actual matches.
So my opinion is, I don't have a problem with Rollins just walking to WrestleMania. From a story point of view, I think it would be more interesting to have Damian Priest cash in, to have the title up for grabs in the Rumble. I think those would be more interesting. But WWE and Hunter are patient and they're like, nope, we have this vision. We're going to ride out this vision and we'll fill in the blanks in between. So, and Triple H told me this at a press conference once. It's like, hey, once you have a direction, you want to keep that direction. I think if the Seth Rollins injury had been 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, then they take the title off him. But where it lines up where it could be that Seth could fight at WrestleMania and they have this match in mind, whether it's Punk, whether it's Cody, whether it's Gunther, whether it's Roman, whether it's The Rock, whatever the match is for Seth Rollins, they think there's greater value in that match than putting that title on somebody else. I
Yep.
appreciate that patience.
Me too. It's transparent
Yeah,
because they always talk about, hey, what inning are we in and this and that, and they're transparent about it. And that's what I know. The press conferences seem a little hokey,
because
but
they are. It's weird. You're sitting in there and you're like, what's the balance between asking a storyline question and asking a question that you actually you're interested in?
are
This was
we
my struggle.
are we real or are we storyline? where are we? What is your name today? But they're at least transparent, even though they're hokey.
I mean, they're all carnies. I mean, to a degree, Joe. Like, and you've done more sales than I. Like, we're all carnies to a degree. We're all trying to sell ourselves and our brand. I mean, that's the reality. It's just some people do it better than others, and some people are more hokey about it, to use your word. Um, you did mention, and we'll get to the Rumble stuff in a second, because I know you've got odds on it. We want to pick winners and losers and favorites and surprises and all that stuff. We're getting there. Cody versus Punk. They had a face to face on Raw. This, as you mentioned, Joe, was the third face to face that CM Punk has had with Rollins, McIntyre, and now Cody. Here's my observation, and it was a good promo. Like, all this stuff has been really good because there's biting stuff in there, and if you're a hardcore and you're a quote unquote insider, you read all the internet stuff, you're like, ooh. But what they've done, and this is the difference between WWE and AEW in their storytelling. AEW just kind of leaves it there. Like, the fan out there already knows what's going on. With WWE, they turn it into something that if you don't know the inside story, you understand, you get it. And that's the biggest difference. And if they're not sure that you got it, they try to explain it to you. Right. So the biggest dig was CM Punk saying to Cody, like, can you separate business and personal? Because Cody is on the record as saying he left AEW for a personal reason, right? And he won't say what it is, although I I don't even want to speculate on it, right? But if it ties into CM Punk, then there's a story there because CM Punk and him kind of crossed over and so on and so on and so on. But what my biggest takeaway from this promo was not that they cross paths and, like, you know, CM Punk is more American Dream and Cody is more CM Punk than the other one is. Cody seemed very uncomfortable and there was a little bit more bass to his voice. He seemed a little like condescending in his tone. And Cody just didn't seem really comfortable with the promo. And that was kind of my biggest takeaway from it. Because when Punk's been in the ring with some of these promos, you see the look in his face like, I wish he hadn't have said that, or, you know, there's anger, or there's pushing, or whatever. So I don't believe that Cody and Punk actually like each other on any type of level, but I think they're willing to do business with each other because I think in WWE, the business, the extra payout is worth it, right? In AEW, I think it's like a base salary, and that's why the Bucks wouldn't work with Punk, right? And Hangman Page didn't want to work with Punk. But I think in WWE, so if they do a WrestleMania match, for example, you know, they're going to get an extra $1 million on top of their downside guarantee, which, I mean, Cody's downside, I think, is 4. Punk's is probably like 1, 2, 3, something like that. Although now that Phil Brooks has closed the Netflix deal, you know, because it's Netflix and Phil now, $5 billion Phil, you know, CM Punk might be getting more than that. But I thought the promo was good. I felt like Cody looked uncomfortable out there. But they have a lot of different directions that they can go with CM Punk if Seth Rollins is an unwilling participant in all this. Drew McIntyre's contract is up shortly after WrestleMania, according to the internet, and Cody just signed a new contract. So wherever they want to go, like it's good, it's interesting. The promos are good, at least the first promos are good. But also, what they've done is with running up the score with CM Punk is Cody's finishing the story has now become, well, CM Punk has a story to finish, and Drew McIntyre has a story to finish, and then there's Jey Uso, and then there's Sami Zayn, and now like Jinder Mahal is being trolled by Tony Khan in AEW, and now it's like Jinder's like, oh, I want to beat Seth Rollins, so it's kind of become this more layered story of like, no, F you, Cody. You're not the only person who wants to fulfill their dreams and what they feel like they should do. So that's a long way of me asking, what do you think of the Cody Rhodes CM Punk promo?
I like the way you looked at it. I didn't really see it like that, as maybe Cody was nervous, but there was a lot of things. We all remember Cody Rhodes' last promo in AEW, where he talked about, I'm the guy who did that. Let me tell you about the pipe bomb. You know what I mean? And all those things that Punk mentioned, and Cody did that. So the first diss was CM Punk saying, I'm more Cody Rhodes than you are. And then him finishing it saying, hey, I'm more CM Punk than you are. So I think like right that's kind of the story. Like it's personal. It's real personal. The other thing that I thought was very interesting was here's Cody, and then here's the guy that's coming in about to take it all away from you. That came from The Rock on CM Punk. So that was an old promo between the two of them. Something's going on with these two. I don't. We mentioned a change potentially happening. If this was the main event and not a non-Roman Reigns main event, sign me up. And let's not forget the AEW angle. They couldn't do it, and WWE is. And though that one gave up on himself, and WWE gave up on the other, and now they're both could be in the center of the main event. It's perfect. It's spite. There's so many layers to this, Jimmy, that I think this needs to happen, and it builds Cody's story better than winning the championship.
Well, and so I think Joe, like, and we'll transition into the Rumble preview stuff here. I think the men's Royal Rumble match should be a double finish. So Cody comes out at 1, or if you want to have CM Punk come out at 1, but Cody and Punk are 1 and 2. They go the distance, and this isn't an original story, but they go the distance. They're there at the end, and they end up having the Bret Hart Lex Luger finish. They both eliminate each other at the same time. They can't figure it out. It's a draw. They both win. But instead of guaranteeing them both the main event in WrestleMania, they're both like, nope, we need to settle this. We need to have a match. And that's where you do an Elimination Chamber. You do it at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. You're not putting, they don't have to sacrifice their title shot with 4 other guys, right? But your main event for Australia is CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes. The winner gets the title shot. That match has a non-finish or a double pin or something like that. You go to Monday Night Raw and both Cody and Punk pick Roman Reigns. That has been my ideal finish, because what it does is you put Roman's championship in jeopardy again. And you're like, because that crowd on that promo was split. CM Punk and Cody, right? Now you go in and you're like, well, Roman's got to lose now. Like, you've got the returning CM Punk, you've got Cody who's as second crack. You have Roman retain through nefarious circumstances. But what you can do is you can keep pushing Cody's finishing the story back and let him chase longer, right? Because that's the storytelling of wrestling now. And you can have Roman and Punk have their story where Roman beats Punk, like clean, like no issues. Maybe it gets to Money in the Bank or whatever, Backlash or whatever. And you can tie in the Paul Heyman thing. But now Cody wins the Money in the Bank, and Cody's not going to sneak up on Roman and cash in, although I would love it if he did as a dirty villain. Like, that would be tremendous. Like, what a swerve. But Cody calls a shot and he goes, you know what? We're going to do this at Survivor Series. We're going to do this at War Games. We're going to do this at SummerSlam, whatever the pay per view. But that's how I would do it. And then Cody beats Roman because now Roman has the record, the Hogan record, and you can move forward with Cody as your champion if that's who you think should be the champion.
Yeah.
That's what I would do for the Rumble. For the men's Rumble, is I would have a double finish. And this kind of goes into like, Joe, here's who's been announced for the Rumble so far. Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Nakamura, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Gunther, Chad Gable, Otis, Tozawa, Kofi Kingston, Damian Priest. What are the odds there? I assume that Cody and CM Punk are co-favorites.
Yes, as of right now. Betting odds can be a little bit, hokey. I'll use that word again today, because there are competitors and differences. But the heavy favorite is CM Punk, followed by Cody Rhodes. Correct. CM Punk is the favorite with minus money. The third one's The Rock. I don't know
So
if
that
you
gets
care
a
to.
prize factor.
Yep. I think Gunther, it comes in next, then LA Knight, Randy Orton, Sami Zayn. Those are your top guys here. Do you think someone other than the top 5 that we mentioned here wins the Royal Rumble?
Jey Uso.
Ooh.
Solo Sikoa. Those are the two. Those are the two because that would tie into the bloodline story. That would also give somebody that Roman would want to work with over a CM Punk, over a Cody Rhodes, something like that. It would also be a good swerve because, and this is why I wanted Seth's title to be on the line. If Rollins' title is on the line, it opens up the field more to realistic winners. Like you could see McIntyre winning, you could say Jey Uso winning, you could see Finn Balor winning. Like it just opens up so many more doors. With it being for what we presume is the Roman shot, right? Especially now, if the gossip is Rollins doesn't want to work with Punk, which by the way, good for Seth Rollins. Although it is kind of petty, like the Young Bucks and all that stuff, but like I don't know, like if Seth Rollins feels like he's been disrespected, then maybe he has to maybe Punk just has to work his way into Rollins' respect, which it's interesting because I've always heard that Seth and Cody don't get along, and Seth did business with Cody,
Yeah.
but maybe Seth is now in more of a position where he's like, you know what? No. Like,
You think they're
no.
trying to build that on Seth as another angle?
Oh,
Like
I could see
maybe,
it.
like, hey, wow, you're going to hold the title and won't wrestle CM Punk?
I
You
could
know,
see it too, because so when Seth and Punk did their promo battle thing, I thought Seth was the babyface in that, and yet the crowd was cheering CM Punk. Because they were like little nuggets. Because Seth Rollins is like, yeah, I stayed here and you left and you did all these bad things. And the crowd's like, CM Punk. And it's like, no, like CM Punk is being portrayed as the villain here. And yet you're cheering him, which it goes to a long-standing theory that I have that Hulk Hogan's always been a heel. He was just portrayed as the American hero for his WWF run. But if you look at some of his matches, like he worked as a heel. If you look at that Mega Power storyline, like, yeah, his hand placement on Elizabeth was a little questionable, right? He was going after not only Macho Man's title, but his girl. Like the Rumble in 87 in 89. Oh, yeah, he dumped out Savage and Bad News Brown at the same time. Like he created that whole conflict. And he left his partner on a Friday night main event. I'm sorry, I'm sidetracking here. I'm just going through my childhood. I'm sorry. Um, I have Joe, I have these moments, right? So it goes to like there's just such more of an open field. So Joe Murray, I'll ask you directly, like, who do you want to win and who do you think wins the men's Royal Rumble match?
I want Gunther to win, and I think Gunther's going to win.
Good answer. Good different answer. Good job, Joe.
So I like your Jey Uso. My counter, and I don't know if it's big enough. I don't know.
Oh, Jey Uso's getting the crowd reactions with all of it. Like Jey Uso's over, man.
What about Jimmy Uso?
So Jimmy Uso would be good because nobody would see that one coming either. And it would also, in the same way, if Solo won, it would create a tension spot in the bloodline. So I'm all for that.
The last the one that I really think could fit is Drew McIntyre. He's been excellent. Oh, he has been really good. I mean, I listen, that guy carried the company for a long time. His contract's up, but like him winning is kind of like the story that they've been telling us for a long time. Forget about all these people coming in. This is the guy that's been here with Roman. So that one's on the table for me.
And I do know that Roman and Drew get along very well. I think there's a big amount of respect. Let me answer my own question. Um, I want to see CM Punk win. I think that Cody Rhodes wins. And I think they're both involved in the finish. I think at the point where WWE's story is telling you the story of like, this is Cody's time. And it goes to when Cody did the Steve Austin podcast, he said, I've always loved Philadelphia. And so what wrestlers do sometimes is, whether they mean to or not, they always give you like a little tip of what's coming if you're paying attention to it. And so Cody mentioning Philadelphia, I think might have been the tip off for it. So I want to see CM Punk win. I think Cody wins. Joe Murray, who do you see as a surprise? And this counts The Rock, by the way, as a surprise because he hasn't been listed. He's not an official entrant, but who do you think would be a good surprise for the men's Royal Rumble match?
So I have three. I'll make them quick. Big E,
Yep, good one.
if he's medically cleared. Andrade,
Good one.
and I always use Matt Cardona because maybe they'll use him for a night. He's my guy, so I got to do that. Surprise announcer Jim Ross.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So I would say surprise announcer would be Pat McAfee. I would say Big E is a good one. I would say Brock would be a good surprise. The Rock is considered a surprise. You know, they're in Tampa. John Cena could come right in. Ken Shamrock,
Heard
I
that
think,
one.
lives in the area. Like, I've seen that one. Rey Mysterio is due back, so I could see that one. I don't think MJF is a surprise. I think MJF is so banged up and, time off, whatever, but I don't know that. And I don't see Okada being a surprise because he's over in Japan. He's finishing up with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I know that there's some online scuttlebutt that he's going to WWE. He's going to start in NXT. If that's the case, and this isn't new reporting, this is just what I've not only read but confirmed through my own people at NXT, is if he's going to NXT, they don't know it. The creative staff does not know that Okada is showing up in NXT. So that's the men's match. How about the women's Rumble match?
Yeah, so
Um,
the women's odds are out. There are some books that offer this. I know you have a favorite book, Jimmy, that might offer this as well.
I don't think FanDuel does because they're not. I think DraftKings is the only one that offers. It's DraftKings and it's Jimmy Shapiro's group.
Okay.
Bet Online, Bet
Bet
OG.
Yep. Yep. Bet online. So Bailey is the favorite, followed by Becky Lynch, Jade Cargill, Sasha Banks is on this list. And then it's Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Carrie Sane, Rhea Ripley, Alexa Bliss, Dakota Kai, and Asuka. Anyone outside of them win the Rumble?
No, I think it's either Bailey or Becky Lynch. I think those are the two main ones. You've already started with the tease of Becky versus Rhea for WrestleMania or another show. There's been enough teases in Damage Control where a Bailey win would make sense. It's also kind of worth noting that there hasn't been a multiple time female Royal Rumble winner in history. And if Becky does it, that would be Becky. I think it's Bailey's match to lose. That's who I want to win. That's who I think wins is Bailey. And I think that the tell Joe Murray is at a press conference back in like September. Triple H just randomly shouted out Bailey for all the work that she's done. That's Triple H telling you that he's got plans for Bailey. That's how I interpreted it. And so the story of Damage Control has been outstanding, where it's here's Bailey coming back and she's got this little group, and then that group is helping Bailey win matches. And then magically Io Sky wins the women's world title, wins the SmackDown title. And then here comes Asuka, here comes Kairi Sane, and now the energy of the group has shifted away from Bailey's leadership to they're kind of doing their own thing, and now Bailey is losing matches. And because Damage Control isn't helping Bailey, she's losing matches. There was a match last week or the week before where Bailey throws Bianca Belair to the outside, and Damage Control just looks at Bianca Belair. Bailey's got the referee distracted. They don't do anything, and Bailey ends up losing. That's a tell that all ain't well in Damage Control. And so, how do you put the exclamation point on Bailey and create a tension point in that group? Well, Bailey wins, and Bailey thinks you think that Bailey's going for Rhea Ripley, but Bailey's really ends up going for Io Sky. Because remember, they don't have to declare who they're fighting.
Yeah. That's a long
They could go up
storyline.
to the Monday before WrestleMania and not declare.
Yeah. We need a payoff on that one.
Right.
We've been sitting through that one enough. I think we need a payoff on it. But as far as who I would like to win, it's Bailey. But who do I think is going to win? Nia Jax. I think they're going to build her as the one woman who was in a men's match, and I think she's main event ready, especially with potentially Charlotte being missing and some others that at the top. So I'm going Nia Jax just because she's her presence. How about that? Her presence.
Yeah, I could see it. And they put a graphic on Raw the other night where it's she hasn't been beaten since she returned,
Yeah.
and she put a stomping on Becky Lynch.
Yep.
So I could see that. And that would also, but then it's like, do you do Nia Jax versus Rhea Ripley? Do you do Nia Jax versus Io Sky?
Oof. That
Like
one's
those
weird.
matches are both bad,
Yeah.
but
But what's Charlotte DTA? Philly?
oh, I bet we don't see Charlotte until June at
SummerSlam?
the earliest.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
that's if everything goes well. But I
Yeah.
mean, realistically for Charlotte, you bring her back SummerSlam or Survivor Series. That's when you bring her back.
My surprises would be AJ Lee,
Yep.
uh,
That's who I would go
Na-
with.
Naomi, and
Yep, Naomi's a
I
good one.
I'll throw Mandy Rose in there because she's hot. She's all over the place right now. And she's a beautiful specimen. God's greatest creation, right? Um, but I will just say that she's always when I scroll, she's always going by, and I think she has like a popular podcast and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and you don't just have to be her only fan to support her.
That's right.
Yeah, every time I see her on Instagram or Twitter, it's always promoting her OnlyFans. It's like it's fine. So, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Mandy Rose, God's greatest creation, as you said. There's a story of how she was supposed to beat Charlotte in New York she was supposed to beat Asuka for the women's title in New York the year that they did Ronda versus Becky versus Charlotte. So Mandy Rose could have been the SmackDown Women's Champion instead of Becky Two Belts,
Wow.
right? That's a big one, and everybody's like, "Oh, how could they have Charlotte beat Asuka 2 weeks before at a freaking casino in Connecticut, to change the main event?" Well, you could have had Mandy Rose beating
Well,
Asuka.
you bring her in, she fights. Her and Dupree girl go at it at Mania for Otis, and it's a match made.
Otis on a pole match. Roman Reigns is fighting on this show. He's defending the WWE Universal Heavyweight Championship against Randy Orton, AJ Styles, LA Knight in a fatal 4-way match. So I think we both agree Roman's winning here.
Yes.
So my question is, does Roman Reigns stack Orton, AJ Styles, LA Knight like he did Edge and Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 37?
Thought about that. I thought about that. You know, how couple of things here. So Roman will move on. How does it happen? You know, is there involvement, etc. I'm starting to. I don't want to use the word sour, but LA Knight is getting a little stale to me. I don't know if there's too many cooks in the kitchen, or they're trying to put him over. Maybe it feels like they're trying to give him a good rub here. I just hope that he gets a strong rub out of this one because I think Orton's a favorite. I mean, AJ Styles belongs in the conversation constantly, so I get it. They're giving the kid the rub, but I think it's that rub might take some of the shine off. So I hope they can somehow make him look strong. However, this finish happens.
Well, I think LA Knight is going to fight Logan Paul at WrestleMania. That seems to be the direction that they're going because it's just two great yappers. And LA Knight has his WrestleMania moment by because I don't think that Kevin Owens is beating Logan Paul for the US title. So Logan Paul goes into WrestleMania as the US champion. LA Knight walks out of WrestleMania as the US champion. I will kind of because my so Elliot from Boston, caller, he's actually become a good friend of mine thanks to Celtics at 7. He sent me this thing, and I know you talked to Justin Barroso on the nighttime show last night. So I don't know if you talked to him about this, but the screen grab that he sent me was it's citing a story from Sports Illustrated, where it says, "quote Multiple sources close to WWE head of creative Paul Levesque, Triple H, have indicated that Cody Rhodes will not headline this year's event, nor will he finish his story at WrestleMania 40." Unquote. So, did you talk to Justin about this?
We didn't talk about that quote, but he kind of hinted maybe a second main event that may not include Cody.
Okay. So this I think kind of goes into the whole like if the easiest path is the Rock wins the Rumble, and now you've got however many weeks of promos between the Rock and Roman Reigns, right? And so it begs the question like if Cody isn't challenging for the world title, isn't challenging for Roman Reigns' title, is he challenging for Seth Rollins' title? Are they going Cody versus CM Punk now? Because to me, Cody's got to be in a title fight. And it's gotta be Roman, I think. Am I wrong in thinking that, Joe?
It's like what we said earlier. Maybe if Punk and Cody can make money, they can continue Roman blank, Seth blank. You know what I mean? Like keep that going and let them be their own main event. So that's the only way I think he's not in a title match.
But so to me, like, if I'm building out WrestleMania, and we'll wrap up here shortly. If I'm building out WrestleMania, like, I still think that I'd rather not do Roman and The Rock. I'd rather do Rock and John Cena against somebody else, like, tag them up. Like, because I think you want to protect The Rock who does a people's elbow and he looks gassed, right? Because he's trained for movie acting. He's not trained for 60-minute match of pro wrestling. So I mean, I still and look, it's because it's my idea, right? I do Roman versus Punk versus Cody. That would be my night one WrestleMania main event. My night two WrestleMania main event. My night one, the Saturday night show, I do Becky and Rhea Ripley because I think they can just tear it up. And I think Rhea Ripley deserves a WrestleMania main event. Like she's earned it. She's worked for it. Like people forget she went coast to coast in last year's Royal Rumble match. And then she beat Charlotte, which would have been, and I think Sports Illustrated actually had this as their match of the year, or somebody did. If the Usos aren't defending against Sammy and Kevin Owens, Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley is the main event of night one. And by the way, a really like top 3 match of the year, top 5 match of the year, but it got outshined by the tag titles. So that's how I would build it out. But if they're going with Rock and Roman for night 2, night 1 becomes, well, is it Cody and Punk? Is it Cody Punk? Is it Cody and Punk versus Rollins now? Does Randy Orton upset Roman Reigns and they do Orton versus Cody? Like and then they do Rock and Roman without the title. Like, there's so many things. There's also the big what if, Joe, because I've been thinking about this for a while. What if Roman Reigns doesn't get COVID? Roman Reigns was supposed to drop the title he had at the time to Brock Lesnar on the day one pay-per-view. And then Roman gets COVID and Brock wins the WWE title from Big E. Like, think about how the landscape of this record
Mhm.
changes if Roman Reigns doesn't get COVID, supposedly. So, like, there's a lot of information to digest there. So, what's kind of your overall feelings
So
of like,
so
if it's
what
not
what I
Cody finishing the story, what's the main event?
so th- I think having 2 nights they should capitalize on. Meaning, you win on Saturday, you face Roman on Sunday, you know? So, could it be that Punk and Cody don't have a match at Mania? Roman, Gunther, this is what I think. Gunther wins and challenges Seth like it was set up.
And it just takes everything else out of it, and you have a build to whoever faces Roman.
I think Cody and Punk should battle it out to face Roman in the main event on night 2.
Yeah,
And why not? Listen, we're spitballing here, but at
of
least,
course.
it avoids, like, your Jey Uso angle puts it right on Roman, right?
Yep.
Roman's gonna get the match. How do we know that whoever wins chooses Roman? We just
Well, we
don't know that,
don't.
and
We
that's what
don't
I'm
know that.
saying. So, was this Gunther promo this week foreshadowing of maybe if Gunther would win, he wants Seth, not Roman?
Yeah, it kind of all. It's just the great thing about this, Joe, as we wrap up, is WWE has options and they're all good, right? And that's where the point of this company is, and kind of where we started this thing with. They're getting $5 billion from Netflix because their programming is so hot. Pro wrestling is hot right now, or at least it feels that way. There are more people interacting. There are more people watching, so it's all a good thing. Joe, any closing thoughts about the Rumble or anything wrestling related?
No, just it's a great week. And I just, when you look at this thing long term here, people have been wrestling fans for a long time. I just don't know what the negatives are going over to Netflix. If it's buying a subscription, hey man, at least you're putting it towards something that you're gonna watch and you're gonna love and support. And that would be my only angle on it. But this is a big week, and now we are officially on the road to WrestleMania. But all the companies are thriving right now. Wrestling's in a great spot, and I hope we all get the storylines that keep us entertained, and continue to watch. But today, this was a great week for, I think, wrestling in general, and it puts it on the map on a global scale.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. It's just the other thing too is it's funny because I've kind of like I've got this Cody thing in my head, and it's like somebody told me about a month ago. This is just a following up to that Sports Illustrated report. Somebody told me about a month ago, like, now that Cody's re-signed, you watch Triple H screw Cody out of winning and beating Roman. And now that kind of like lingers with me. I
Ooh,
don't know. There might still be a thing there. But I mean, Cody's hitting all the merchandise things, and except for R-Truth. How about R-Truth
I love him.
beating everybody? He's great.
It's great.
He's awesome. Kowloon guy too. All right, Joe. We'll catch you on the nighttime show. Thank you for spending the last 60 minutes with me. That's Stick to Wrestling. I'll be back next week with a recap. Maybe we'll pull somebody who might be there. I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I just know I'll be BSing about the Rumble and the aftermath of it, and it'll be good because the Rumble is my favorite pay-per-view of the year. So, Joe Murray, thank you so much. We'll catch you on the nighttime show. 6 o'clock most nights after Celtics games with Cerrone Battle, talking to Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated, podcasts available, all that stuff. So, Joe Murray, thank you very much. My name is James Stewart, and you have been sticking to wrestling.